Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Gratitude Podcast. I'm sitting here looking at the calendar, and it's like mid-November already, and Thanksgiving is like next week or so, and then Christmas and the New Year's. Where did time go? But it's just been an amazing year too. The best year ever again. That's one of my things. I posted today about today's the best, or the start of the best week ever again. And that leads into mindset, just believing that whether it's a day, a week, a year, that it's the best ever again. Helps to make it so. And so with that kind of as lead in, I want to talk about a model that I've been developing over the last year. And I'm going to share this next week, but I'm just going to draw, and I just want you to kind of think about the things that led to this model. And quite truthfully, this model came from a download that happened. I've been waiting for downloads. All my friends have all these amazing downloads, and I wanted to download. I got this download, and it happened at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and things just kept downloading from about 3 till 6 o'clock in the morning. And then since then, I've evolved what came to initially to a more, what's the right word, professional model that I'm really, really liking. And it continues to evolve or morph into something that I think is going to really serve people, and having a gratitude and love and rad, and however you choose to call your life, just an amazing adventure. So it kind of started about a year or so ago. Well, probably it started when I was born, but it started really taking shape about a year or so ago, when I started thinking about some friends of mine, and some really good friends of mine. And a lot of my friends are now, in the spiritual world, and they do all the spiritual things. And that it became clear that all my friends in a spiritual world, and I wanted to go in the spiritual world to improve my life, but their lives weren't any better. In fact, they were having all sorts of challenges in their lives. And I really started thinking about that, like, oh, shoot, all I thought you needed to do was become spiritual, and then life is going to be great. But it doesn't necessarily work that way. And then this model came, and it's a 4-quadrant model. I'm trying to turn it into a circle, I think, but right now it's a square. I'm going to use my whiteboard here to kind of draw up sort of what it's evolving to. And if you got some feedback on it, you could share it with me. I'd be happy to take any feedback. So I'm going to draw my model first. I'm going to kind of turn toward here, and then I'm going to turn back, because my podcast engineer told me I need to be facing the microphone. Here's the microphone. So I'm going to be coming back. So there's my 4 quadrants. And then I ran into another friend that said, oh, that's like this model. And I go, oh, shoot, someone else thought of it, but it's a little bit different. But I'm going to use some of their words because I really like it too. And I'm going to make it work somehow. So when you see the final product, it's going to be kind of cool. But here's what I thought. I said that this quadrant, so that's the upper left quadrant, well, I'm going to call it for now the Healthset. So Healthset, that comes from mindset, right? Because mindset is going to go there. A lot of people have heard you just need to have the right mindset. Well, I started thinking about that. Well, you also need to have the right health set. And as I've been learning, we also have to have the right heart set. And then you need 4, right? And so the final quadrant is what I'm going to call the Soulset. And what I'm believing more and more is that you need to have all 4, or work in the 4 quadrants. And I'm going to expand on this health set one over here, because it actually isn't my model. I was thinking it was more sort of the real world 3D life strategy. So I'm going to morph that somehow. And I'm going to call that life strategies. or life planning, health planning. There's a lot of things that kind of come into that quadrant. I call that the most 3D kind of quadrant. But you can accelerate your growth if you get a coach. I think that's really important to do. So now for my Healthset, I've got a strength coach. I go running. I now added cryotherapy and infrared sauna and infrared light and compression. And I go, trying to go swimming. My daughter just moved into a place that has a swimming pool that's heated. So but I want to take care of my health and nutrition. I've got actually a nutritional coach. I don't use her very much, but I do have a coach. And those coaches help accelerate. I used to think that I could do all this stuff on my own. And one of the things I learned from Tony Robbins, actually, in my very first event, was that high performance people all have coaches in multiple areas of their life. And I've learned that to just be true. Now I've got several coaches that have been helping me really evolve and change my life for the better to live this radical life that I'm just loving. I think that's really important to do. And it may be the first thing to do. I don't know. But it's one of the things I think you need to do. And then I think you need to work on your mind and your mindset. And what I did here, as I called this quadrant, actually, did I spell that right? I don't think I did. Probably. Supposed to be psychology. And this is where I think you need to do the inner child work, the attachment style work, psychology. I come from an engineering background, so this was like, you don't do that kind of stuff. But one of the things I've learned is that the people around me that don't do this work or that believe they've done it and they've already got this, evidence shows that they hardly ever do. I mean, I was at this workshop and 2 people raised their hand and said, I already done my inner child work. I'm good. And less than 5 minutes later, they proved to everyone in the workshop, you still have work to do. I think all of us do. And so I encourage you to actually do some work in this area. Now, there's overlap. There is overlap from here to here, all 4 around. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to show that. But when I talk about mindset, it's about the mind. So I think that everyone should have, this is really hard to take, even for me. I think everyone should have a therapist. If you want to accelerate your growth, your life, not only do I recommend a coach, I recommend a therapist. I remember it was several years ago, I think a guy named Thomas Eagleton was running for vice president, or he was selected as the vice presidential pick for, I think it might have been Mondale. I could be really wrong in my politics. I don't remember. But I remember that it was either he or might have even just been his wife. The press found out that they had gone to therapy. And that was a big no-no back then. And he was dropped from the ticket, right? Am I getting this right? I don't know. I think that. Anyway, that's my story. Nowadays, I know you still have to get over whatever stigma might exist around a therapist, but I think it's really important work to do. You can call them something else if you want, but it's a therapist that helps you with your inner child work, helps you with attachment styles, helps you with communications, helps you, go deep and address those traumas. Like I talked about last week with the family disease cycle. If you haven't seen that, go take a look at that. I didn't realize the impact of trauma that happens in your family. And that it could happen. You feel the trauma. Your limbic brain, your middle brain is impacted perhaps greater than, research shows this, greater than your loved one who has the disease. And we think it's all them. And when I think about traumas, I used to think about traumas as like, really bad stuff like murder and rape and, really bad stuff. Well, it turns out that all those small little traumas in life, that you learn working in this particular quadrant about you as a child. And I've talked about this in the past. We're first born as the original child, and then somewhere around 2, we get hurt, and we have that wounded child, and that wounded child develops a defense. That becomes the defensive child. And it isn't until many years later when you decide that, ooh, I need to heal myself. I'm not doing so good, or not being in relationship very effectively, very well, very lovingly. Sometimes when I get triggered, then you become a healing child. And if after many years and a lot of work, you eventually come out as the divine child, and that divine child is now full of wisdom, but it also has, and it goes back to the original child, where now there's the wonderment that the original child initially has, and you've evolved or become awakened to that place. And I think it's just a lifelong journey to be at that place. But that all these traumas along the way, they add up, and that they're real traumas, because that feeling. So even when, some of my traumas, I remember in first grade, I was jump roping, chasing a little girl, and the teacher got mad and yelled at me, and it made me feel shame and guilty and all sorts of kinds of things. I didn't realize that actually has impact to the person I am today. We have a lot of those. I did an exercise for 30 days where I just kind of sat there for just a few minutes. Didn't take very long to figure out some kind of little trauma or trigger that happened from my childhood, where my wounded child came out, and that was a rejection. That's my wounded child. And my defense came out, which is to shut down and be quiet. It's pretty obvious. I still have been doing that today. That's why I'm trying to address it, because you got to address it eventually. And proof that you need to is when you're triggered and you go to your defensive child, when you become wounded. You just need to do it. If you never get triggered, then I bow down to you. You don't need to do this work, but I think every single person does. And if you don't, you have a less than ideal chance to actually build the kind of life that you really deserve, that is meant for you. And so my recommendation is get a coach, get a therapist, and keep going on to the next 2 boxes. So let's see what they are. So we call that Heartset. Heartset is really opening up your heart, opening up all your feelings in emotions. And I was thinking about, because I had in there that you needed to get a guru, like a Joe Dispenza, Abraham Hicks, or someone like that. And then it came to me that, because I didn't like the word guru. No one really wants a guru, right? But I came up with a better word. See if you think so. I liked it. I came on my run today. Get a catalyst. A catalyst is someone that can help you open up your heart. It's kind of going beyond this 3D world, to Joe Dispenza, it's to that 5D world, or even a channeler like Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham Hicks. Whether you believe it or not, I'm not sure I do, except that the information given is so right on, so believable, so true, that I don't care whether it's believable or not. I am being catalyzed into opening my heart to a much greater degree as a result of recognizing that there are gurus or catalysts or channelers or just people in my life that serve as catalysts for me for growth. And that's growth in my heart, in my heart set, helping me to just open up and to see things so much more beautifully. I think it's important to do. It's not just mindset. There's a lot of mindset training. You need Healthset. You need Heartset. It's kind of hard to go backwards. You need, up here, Heartset. And there's a 4th one, and I call that Soulset. And so this is where you take your spiritual journey. Your spiritual journey. And I think that everyone, if you're raised in a family that's spiritual, I think you also still, because, when you're raised in that way, you don't know any different. So you have this spiritual life, or what you consider to be spiritual life. But most people I knew that grow up in those kinds of environments, at some point, maybe in their teens, maybe 20s, or maybe even later, they actually start their real spiritual journey, not the one that has been sort of forced on them, or, the environment just was there for them, but they have to start their own spiritual journey. And whether it's a religious journey, or a New Age journey, or, a Buddhist journey, or a meditative journey, whatever it is for you, I think it can be different for each person. I'm not advocating in any particular way, because I've tried a lot of different ones. But I think that, like I'm recommending a coach and a therapist and a catalyst, I recommend here a spiritual guide. And that spiritual guide could be your minister or pastor or reverend, or, in the religious world, whatever the leaders are, or, in Buddhism. Buddhism's kind of a religion, but it's also kind of a science. And so it could be a guide to help you along that path. It could be a meditative process. And, there's lots of people that teach meditation. The one that I'm really, really into right now, that I'm going to talk about in upcoming episodes here of the Ratitude podcast, is the Gene Keys. And I'll probably be talking about the Tantra world too. Tantra, like, you don't really know. It's really a spiritual journey. But the Gene Keys is something that I think is just incredible. And the process that's being taught there is around contemplation, the art of contemplation, and taking pauses in your life to contemplate and go on this spiritual journey. And there's a map or a mirror for each person to start their spiritual journey. And that's really all it is a mirror or a map. But then the real work is really contemplation. The way Richard Rudd, who created the Gene Keys, describes this is that, you can get to this spiritual path through meditation, or you can get there through concentration, or, yoga is concentration. But there's a middle path, and the middle path is called contemplation. And I really like that, because I think I've been pretty focused on things in my life, and I've tried to meditate. I don't do so good at meditation. I've tried to, and I will continue to try to develop that muscle for me. But this contemplation has just opened up a whole new world of spiritual growth for me. And again, I'm going to talk about this in my next episode a lot more. It's such a complicated, sophisticated, really process to take a look at yourself and go inward further and further. And I think each of these steps is actually doing this. And so, for me to live rad and love contagiously, now consciously, and to have a ratitude kind of life, I've had to work in each of these four quadrants. And again, there's a lot of overlaps, but I have coaches that are helping me in the physical world, in the financial world, in the relationship world, in the mind world. I have a spiritual therapist that I've been working with to help me understand my inner child and attachment styles and communication styles and archetypes and all sorts of things that I just didn't learn as an engineer. And I've got a lot of catalysts now that have really caused my mind to just be open to the things that I wasn't open to most of my life. Like there's a 5D or maybe a 12D, or that there's different dimensions that are all happening at the same time, or that maybe there's past lives, or maybe there's future lives, and maybe they're all happening at the same time. I don't know anymore. I mean, none of it made sense to me just a few years ago, but now I've just decided I'm going to be open to anything and everything because I don't know, and I don't think anyone really does. But to think about it and to use it to actually grow yourself, that's a pretty cool thing to do. And so there's some really interesting catalysts out there for change. And then, of course, this spiritual journey going inside has been a wonderful process in itself. And I'm loving the Gene Keys. I'm now new to the Tantra teachings, philosophy. I went to a week-long workshop in Bali last May that really opened myself up to. I think I've talked about this, where I learned to receive love from the universe or from God or from Source. And that's really changed my life. And I'm going to be going back to Bali here at the end of January, beginning of February, I think, to start a soulmate, 3.5-year process, hopefully, of going deeper into the Tantra world. And, 10% of it is kind of sensual. 90% of it is really a deep soul work, to just discover who we really are, what we're meant to be, what our purpose is. Again, you get that from all these different areas, but I think, and what I'm advocating to you as a listener of the Ratitude podcast, if you want an amazing life, the one that you've dreamt of, I would figure out how to work in all 4 quadrants. That's my message to you. Don't do the way I did it. I just kind of tell you the things that I've done to sort of serve as a catalyst for you to go look at and open your eyes to what's available to me right now, or this afternoon, or tomorrow, or this week, or this month, or this year. Because clues will show up all the time. Every single thing that happened to me over the past few years happened because, truthfully, I read the Self-Esteem Prophecy 25 years ago, and the big message there was there's clues all the time, and all you have to do is become conscious of your unconscious. And when you do, you'll start seeing. So all of a sudden, Abraham Hicks shows up, Joe Dispenza shows up, Tony Robbins shows up, the Gene Keys shows up, Tantra shows up, spiritual guide shows up, a health coach shows up. Everything shows up. It shows up for you because God, if you believe in God or the universe or Source or a higher power, whatever it is here to help you grow, to evolve into the beautiful soul that you were meant to be, and to live an amazing life. And if we have resistance to that, we have resistance to that, and that needs to be knocked down. So work on your Healthset, work on your mindset, work on your Heartset, and work on your Soulset, all at the same time, as Joe Dispenza would say. So we're talking some more about each of these, and we're going to particularly go into the Gene Keys next in next week's episode of the Ratitude podcast. So for now, have a beautiful week and make it the best week ever again.